If you just do it, it'll turn out okay. Unless you're trying out your new wireless headphones and they decide they don't want to work. But before we get to this trilogy, I believe Eric has an update on his trilogy.
Oh yeah, as most of you might know, I made a movie in 2021. Then I decided, hey, make a sequel, and the sequel turned out to be even better, which will a lot of people will say, the same thing for Spider-Man 2, which we'll get into, and and I'm about to make a third. A lot of people don't like Spider-Man 3, but I'm hoping that my third movie is gonna turn out to be the opposite of Spider-Man 3. So yeah.
Well, hopefully more like the Spider-Man 3 of the current era than the
Like
past year.
basically the No Way Home of the thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I just made it public today on my Facebook. There actually is a shot at me becoming a member of the Screen Actors Guild. So
Oh wow.
that will be huge. So yeah, with a SAG card, from my understanding, that will mean that I'll have my chance to work on some big name movies. So if I get my SAG card, there's a possibility that I might actually work on a future Spider-Man movie. So
Wow.
yeah, pretty big.
Crossing your fingers.
Yeah,
But
honestly, it's definitely been a lot for me, to digest and all that.
like I said, the catchphrase, if you just do it, it'll turn out okay. And maybe doing that is okay for you.
Exactly, just do it.
Hopefully that'll be in my case.
But speaking of doing it, let's go back to the early 2000s.
I can't believe that was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
That makes me feel old.
So, I do have a question for you, O. Since with the thing of the multiverse now, is this Spider-Man now officially the start of the MCU?
I would say yes. As far as the timeline goes, yes.
I remember reading somewhere that apparently, I don't know if this is true or not, but there were plans to have the Oscorp logo from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies in the first Iron Man, but then it was cut.
I never heard about that.
Like, that's why I don't know if it was true. I just remember reading it somewhere. And I also know that in the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man, they apparently were going to have a cameo from Wolverine, Hugh Jackman.
Wait.
Like, even got as far as getting him to come to New York to film the scene, but then apparently the only reason they didn't is because they couldn't get the costume.
Wait, so that was going to be in the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man?
Supposedly, yeah.
I ain't never heard about that. Crazy.
Like crossover with Fox or something, since Fox owned the
That's why I sort of question it, but it was like all over like trivia sites.
Right. But anyway, at this point, Marvel has sold its rights to Spider-Man to Sony. And they decided, let's take a go at it.
One of various studios they sold the rights to. Like, specifically, Sony got the Spider-Man rights. They also got Ghost Rider, because the Nicolas Cage Ghost Riders were done by Sony. And they also got a few other Marvel properties that they just never used. Then, 20th Century got X-Men, Fantastic Four, and Daredevil. New Line Cinema got Blade. I think Lionsgate, they were the ones. They got Punisher.
That sounds about right.
And Universal got
got Hulk. So,
and going back over these things, I did not know that all the Peter Parkers went to the same high school.
Wait, when you say the same high school, do you mean like the same filming location?
Not but same name high school,
I actually never even noticed that. So
Midtown.
now that you mention it, it makes me want to go back and re-watch them, so I can try to, you know, catch that. But yeah, I never noticed that.
Yeah, but I guess what I think we were talking about earlier is Oscorp and the Iron Man. I guess that would have been like the Stark Industry rival technology. Oscorp Tech can Stark Tech.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe the villain of the first movie would have been, but that's a different story altogether. We'll get to that when we get to the Iron Man trilogy in a month. But
Oh yeah, because Alma suggested it.
yeah,
Yeah,
but let's.
but yeah, I do know that before the Tobey Maguire movie came out, they actually were trying to get a live-action Spider-Man movie made for a while. Like, I know that James Cameron almost was going to do it with Leonardo DiCaprio, and uh, I believe Canon, the same company who did Superman 4, Quest for Peace, like was going to do it. And so pretty much the first Spider-Man movie was in development hell, and then, and then in 2002, it finally happened. And I do know that parts of the James Cameron draft made it into the Sam Raimi movie. Like, as far as I know, the whole thing about Spider-Man having organic webbing actually did come from the James Cameron script. And in my own opinion, it makes sense that, that Peter Parker naturally would have that ability in the first place, because if he's going to get bit by the radioactive spider and get all these spider powers, it would make sense that he naturally would just get that ability in the first place. Now, I do know that spiders, scientifically speaking, shoot webs out of their butt, but I think they can take a liberty on that for the movies, because no one wants to see Spider-Man shooting webs out of his butt, because nobody could take that seriously. And, it just looks a lot cooler, to have him shoot webs out of his wrists. So
I mean, there is the scene in No Way Home where Tom asks Toby, does it only come out of your wrist or does it come out of anywhere else? And then Toby has to reassure him, nope, only the wrists.
So we get the how he got his powers. He going to a field trip. And this one they showed more of the history of the spider itself, how they're trying to breed spiders together.
Uh-huh.
They're like, oh, we bring this spider with this spider and this spider with this spider to make this super spider. Oh, it escaped, but I wonder where it went to. Ow, I got bitten.
Yeah, and yeah, I thought that Tobey Maguire absolutely perfectly nailed the social awkwardness of Peter Parker. I thought he absolutely nailed it. But yeah, a lot of people say
still
he
nails it.
Parker
Like he still has it down in No Way Home a little bit.
He what in No Way Home?
He still had that down a little bit in No Way Home.
Oh yeah, definitely, and that's why, in my opinion, I think Toby absolutely was like the best Peter Parker. The best Spider-Man, though, that's really up for debate. So,
let's talk about the supporting cast. First in the movie, there's their version of Flash Thompson the bully. Who was more of a who in the first two was more of a in these movies he's more of a jock than he was in the other movies.
Which I believe he was a jock in the comics, but I haven't read the comics in a really long time. I do remember that I used to read the Spider-Man comics as a kid, but I don't really remember if he was a jock in the comics or not. He probably was, but that's as far as my memory goes.
Yeah. Then there was the best friend. In this case, it was Harry Osborn.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what I thought was perfect about the casting of James Franco and William Dafoe, you totally can buy that, you know, like that they're father and son, because they actually kind of do look alike. So, you know, I thought that casting was great. And at that time, James Franco like was not as big of a name as he is now.
Yeah.
Mm.
But you know, what's made it so bad that whatever controversy he had going on at the time, he couldn't be in No Way Home.
Yeah, it is a shame, and it's also a shame that Paul Giamatti couldn't be in it. But
Who did he
Yeah,
play?
both of them only get mentioned.
Who did he play again?
Rhino in Amazing Spider-Man 2.
I mean, at least there was the mention.
Yeah, like let's see. I think the only villain from like the Sam Raimi and Mark Webb movies who goes completely unmentioned is the Dane DeHaan Green Goblin.
Yeah,
Like, and, I mean, what he did is heavily alluded to, but he himself is not mentioned.
yep.
So,
And then there's Kristen Dunst as Mary Jane.
Yeah, which a lot of people debate, well, like if she was the best written character, but yeah, I mean, starting in okay, I think I'm getting too far by going Spider-Man 3, but yeah, I thought the casting was good, and you know, and Kristen Dunst definitely is pretty hot, but it seems like that she's most well known for being in Spider-Man. I mean, of course, I know that she was in other movies like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and she also was in Jumanji.
she was? Oh, I think, yeah.
And I think she was in that vampire movie with Tom Cruise. What was its name?
Interview with a Vampire.
Yeah. But it seems like after Spider-Man 3, that Kristen Dunst, you don't really see her in any. I think the last time I saw her in a movie was in Spider-Man 3, and that was 16.
I know she's been in stuff. I think she had a cameo in Anchorman 2.
I haven't seen
that.
That
is the only movie I know she was in after that.
I haven't seen that in 10 years, so maybe I need to.
Yeah, I think she's in like this angel getup, like during like the final brawl scene.
Okay, maybe that's why.
Which is like filled to the brim with like cameos. Then let's see. I mean, this is also jumping ahead to Spider-Man 3, but there's pure irony. So the thing is, Kirsten Dunst. So Mary Jane is a redhead, right? Kirsten Dunst is blonde, so she had to dye her hair red for the movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to Bryce Dallas Howard playing Gwen Stacy in Spider-Man 3, who is a blonde. But Bryce Dallas Howard is a redhead.
That is ironic.
Yeah. So she had to dye her hair blonde.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the time, I really at the time of her, I didn't see that much of a problem. I guess it was later on that I thought differently. Because I guess even by now time, the Mary Jane thing was her trouble was more of a cliche at this point, I think.
I do think that the love relationship thing, I do think it was a little bit better written in the Andrew Garfield movies, but you know, I definitely do think that it served its purpose.
Well, I think the Gwen person could fight back more than Mary Jane could. It seemed like.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, Mary Jane definitely was more of a damsel in distress.
I mean, not completely. Well, lots of times, yeah. But I mean, there was like once or twice where she tried and failed to take part in the action.
But also, with both Gwen and Michelle later on in the MCU, Mary Jane in the movies was more like I'm dating first movie. I'm gonna date Harry. Nope, and then I'm dating the astronaut.
In Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, and but yeah, let's not jump too ahead. Let's talk about Spider-Man
Uh,
one.
oh,
But yeah,
and then finally, the Guardians, uh, who this time are still in the older category, Ben and Aunt May.
yeah. And speaking of Aunt May, I remember reading in the comics as a kid that Aunt May in the comics hated Spider-Man, which I thought was really interesting. Is because of the fact that she had no idea that Peter Parker was Spider-Man, and I've always wanted to see that in a movie. But to be fair, I can see why that they didn't do it in the Tobey Maguire movies. It was because they already had that whole plot line going on, like about how Harry hated Spider-Man, and so to have two people hating Spider-Man going on at the same time would have been kind of redundant. So
Yeah,
I mean, that
in
is
the
kind of
90s,
interesting
94.
because I think the one thing I've seen, like the one like adaptation I've seen where it comes close to having Aunt May hate Spider-Man will be the '94 animated series.
That's what I'm about to say.
Yeah, because there are like a couple of early episodes where she openly expresses disapproval for Spider-Man, like in particularly during the alien costume trip 3-parter. Like when Jameson puts out the bounty on Spider-Man's head, like she like happily says, "Oh, finally that menace will be gone" or something like that, and then Peter like kind of sarcastically says in his head, "Yeah, thanks for the support, Aunt May."
yeah, and remind me, why did Aunt May hate Spider-Man in like the cartoon and the comics again?
I don't know. I think it's because she knew that Peter was taking pictures of him for the Bugle, and she just felt it was dangerous.
Ah,
Yeah,
Okay. I thought maybe it was just like some old person thing. Don't like.
because there are a couple of episodes where she openly expresses, "Peter, why are you putting yourself in danger?"
when she had no idea.
Yeah, she had no. I mean, I believe in the comics, like she admits that she knew for a while, but not in the end, not in the cartoon.
I
So
think
she
she
had
finds
no
out
idea.
in the game too, the PS4 game.
Yeah, in the PS4 game.
But so he gets these powers and decides to be a wrestler.
The
Yeah,
human
and
spider.
yeah, which actually is pretty accurate to the comics. And what I love about that scene, I absolutely love that cameo, like from Bruce Campbell. What's your name, kid? The Human Spider. Oh, that's lame. And then he goes, "The Amazing Spider-Man," and yeah, I just love that scene. And I actually have a memory of me and my family and some family friends. We were at a hotel watching it on TV, and I remember that we were watching that scene. So yeah, and I also love like all the quips, like that Spider-Man saying, like how he says, "That's a lovely outfit. Did your husband make it?"
Yeah. Not to mention the wrestler he fights. I think the wrestler's name is Bonesaw. Is played by Macho Man Randy Savage. I think his name is.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there comes the infamous scene where he gets mad at the Booker. Booker gets robbed.
Oh
He's
yeah.
like, not my problem.
Yeah, and so one of the guys who played the cop in that scene, I actually got the chance to meet him in 2011 and then again in 2012.
Hmm.
Yeah, the guy's name is Timothy Patrick Quill. He also was in Army of Darkness. He also was in Oz the Great and the Powerful.
Who do you
But
play in
unfortunately,
that?
in Oz the Great Powerful, I don't remember. But in Army of Darkness, he was the one that had like that Chinese like mustache and he had like the bald head.
Yeah.
I forget the character's name, but sadly Timothy Quill passed away in 2020. So
Oh.
yeah, it's a shame. But yeah, one of the things I felt was very relatable in the first Spider-Man movie, it was during that scene like where Peter and Uncle Ben get into that fight, and then afterwards and then afterwards Uncle Ben dies, and knowing that that was the last thing he ever said, to Uncle Ben was that fight. That's a very relatable scene. It's because so many people like have dealt with something like that, including me. And so, just the fact that they made, Spider-Man into a hero after that, I definitely really do like. And
Yeah, I forgot. Did he say the famous line before he died? The
yep,
Peter?
with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
And so he chases down the, at the time, killer of the uncle, and
Until they retconned it in Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
like, I guess did he kill him, or did he not?
Well, he sort of sent him tumbling out the like what happened was when he realized who it was. I think he was about to pull a gun on him and take advantage of like the shock moment, but then he twisted his arm and he kind of went tumbling out the window to his death. So kind of indirectly.
But you could argue that he was doing it in self-defense.
Yeah, because he did pull the gun on him.
True, yeah. So, but yeah, when I rewatched the first Spider-Man around the time when No Way Home came out, I mean, of course, it came out in 2002, but I'm like, man, this so definitely has that early 2000s feel. And I definitely like that. It's because, like, that it helps to bring back all that nostalgia and whatnot. I remember when the first movie came out, everybody at school was talking about it. It was like as if you were not the cool kid unless if you saw it.
Wow.
Nice. So, let's get to the villain, the first villain of the series, William Dafoe's Green Goblin.
His casting was great, and I believe that was the first movie that I ever saw with William Dafoe. And people complain about the costume. I get where they're coming from. It would have been nice to have it more accurate to the comics, which they actually were going to do that at one point.
With the skin tight mask thing?
Yeah, like this animatronic mask. I think that would have been cool. I don't know why they decided to ditch that.
Yeah. I guess they did a little bit with the Amazing Spider-Man Green Goblin with the green skin.
Yeah, I guess that's close enough.
Well, the thing is, this was the first Green Goblin suit I ever saw, so it's the one I kind of identify with the most.
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays, people make fun of it because they like comparing it to like something to like a costume that like a Power Ranger villain would wear.
Yeah.
But yeah, you see the difference between when he was unmasked and still the Green Goblin in No Way Home and this movie. We can see his facial expressions better.
Yeah.
I mean, you can sort of see his facial expressions a bit, like whenever he like puts like the visor down, like you can see his mouth and his eyes. Yeah.
But okay, so he's a weapons specialist, but his board just kicks him out or something. I think I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So they go on their old cliche. Let's test this new thing on me. Nothing could go wrong at all.
Yeah, and one of the scenes that I love in the first Spider-Man, it's during that part, like where Norman Osborn figures out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. What I love about that scene is that Peter Parker is wearing Peter Parker is wearing green, which represents the Green Goblin, while Norman is wearing red and blue, which represents Spider-Man. I love that. And the CGI may be a little bit outdated by now, but to be fair, it was 2002, and it was the best CGI they had at that time. So
I remember back when I used to watch Nostalgia Critic, he compared the CG in the first movie, especially like when he's jumping across the buildings, like learning how, like using his powers for the first time. He compared it to Woody running on the street in Toy Story.
Yeah,
In the
I
first Toy
remember
Story,
that.
the first one.
Now I know it's not in this movie, this universe, but what originally was the Green Goblin formula kind of like a comparison to the Captain American formula?
Not that I recall.
Uh,
I don't think so.
I was wondering, because they both made super. They both of them made like super soldiers almost,
Yeah.
but one
Yeah.
was a little less mental capability.
But yeah, I did like how they're going with like that Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde route, like with the Green Goblin. You know, how there's the good side and the bad side of him. And William Dafoe was not the first choice. I heard at one point it was going to be Jim Carrey. That would have been really interesting. It's because of his facial expressions, and I believe someone else also was considered for the Green Goblin. But yeah, William Dafoe absolutely nailed it.
Yeah, I can't describe how much goosebumps I got by him being back in No Way Home, complete with like doing the goblin voice and everything.
Yeah, and with that laugh and
Yeah.
Wow, but I think that would be an interesting thing of if instead of Willem Dafoe, you had Jim Carrey in that role. That'd be weird thinking about now.
It would have been the second time he was playing a supervillain associated with green.
Yep. which would have been a big coincidence.
Yeah.
So yeah,
funny considering that Batman Forever was probably the first live action Batman movie I saw anything of. Yeah.
Yeah, but so in this movie, unlike the next two series, they pretty much skip right through high school and they're already in college by the end of the beginning of the first movie.
But yeah, I mean, to be fair, it probably was because of the age of like the actors.
I mean, in fairness, the first movie does show them graduating from high school.
That it does, yeah.
So it's not that big of a gap.
True, like in the Amazing Spider-Man series, they graduate in the second movie, and then everyone made it to the end of high school in the third movie in the third series. But anyways, they're in high school now. They're in college now. Peter obviously has a crush on MJ, and she's dating Harry in this thing.
Yeah, which I think that's also very relatable. Like a lot of people probably had a crush on somebody, but then somebody who they know like is dating them, and it creates a lot of jealousy and all that. So
it's relatable to me. Only difference is in high school, one girl I had a crush on was dating a guy I had no idea who he was. So I was just like, nah.
That's cool. At least he wasn't your best friend. Like,
no.
Like, hey, I know you like that one girl, but I asked her out anyways. Peace.
I had that happen when I was a sophomore in high school. Oh man, it made it awkward.
Anytime, like the few I've had interest in, the moment I find out they're taken, I just back off right there. I'm not going to be the ass who takes away some guy's girl.
Exactly, and it's pretty much the best thing that you can do. But yeah, I remember when I was a kid, during that scene when Uncle Ben died, I remember that I cried like a baby at that scene as a kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, Uncle Ben's death definitely was done a lot better in the Toby Maguire movie than it was in the Andrew Garfield one. And
like the circumstances behind it were a lot more tragic in the Toby Maguire one, because the Andrew Garfield one,
it felt rushed.
Yeah, it was kind of rushed, and it was it was a lot more of a blatant basically the way the Tobey Maguire one establishes it is just a wrong place, wrong time, because they were trying to take his car and then he got shot for it. Whereas in the Andrew Garfield one, Uncle Ben on purpose goes to stop the robber, when he didn't have to, and got shot for it.
And
I guess that's more heroic, but
yeah, don't they make fun of that in that movie? The Amazing Spider-Man movie, don't they make fun of that line? How he says that line very long or complicated or something?
Are you talking about the great power comes great responsibility?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like they wanted to say in the first Tobey Maguire movie, but they didn't. So he pretty much said the same thing, but he made it a lot more complicated. And I'm like, dude, it's so much better when it's just more simply, with great power comes great responsibility. It's so much easier to remember than that really long paragraph they had. And I'm like, just say it.
But so apparently one of the Green Goblin's weapons is they can vaporize somebody.
Oh yeah, that silly looking skeleton effect. Yeah,
the effect does not hold up.
But I mean, it's still one of the highlights of the movie I look forward to because of how silly it looks.
Yeah, but I mean, what I do like about the Tobey Maguire movies, they definitely do feel like that they came right out of a comic book.
Yeah, I was thinking. Now, imagine if he had brought those bombs with him to Tom's universe.
Oh man, especially if he did it to Aunt May.
That would have taken the really emotional scene and just made it look stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why that they didn't do that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And not to mention, he only uses that bomb in the one scene, and that's it.
So yeah. So why not anywhere else? But yeah. What I do remember as a kid, everybody at school was talking about the final battle between Spider-Man and the Green Goblin, just how much the Green Goblin just beats the shit out of Spider-Man.
Yeah, complete with the punch sound, the heavy punch sound effects and everything.
Yeah, and
it's not exactly a beatdown you see in a lot of hero stuff.
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah.
So there, I think, was it at Thanksgiving where Norman realized that Spider-Man was Peter?
Yeah, what happened was Spider-Man was saving people from a burning building, and then Green Goblin's in there with a voice box of a screaming woman to lure him in. And then they have a fight in there. And not the reveal of it's also one of those basically Sam Raimi using his horror chops because Goblin plays the scream again as he turns it to look at Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And they have that's also the place where we have the infamous line, "So what do you say, Spider-Man? Are you in or are you out? It's you who's out, Gobby. Out
of your mind." Yeah.
Which was so ridiculous that even on the movie's commentary track, Kirsten Dunst was making fun of it.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that line. It's one of those lines where it's so stupid, but yet you'll never forget about it. So I'll it's cheesy.
So I made achievements for the Dreamcast version of the 2000 Spider-Man game, and for the achievement where you find the Green Goblin's lair Easter egg, I used the icon of Goblin in that burning building with the achievement name, "It's you who's out, Gobby, out of this game." Because he's not in the game aside from that Easter egg.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, so during their fight in there, Spider-Man gets a slash from one of the Goblin's blade things that he throws. And he goes to the Thanksgiving dinner, and he doesn't have time. He doesn't have time to change out of the costume or anything, so he's like hiding on the ceiling, like when Norman's walking around. But some of the blood from the cut drips down, and
I remember that.
Yeah,
That was such a suspenseful scene, and it worked. Yeah. It works is because Sam Raimi had a lot of experience with horror films before.
And then there's the famous saying.
Yeah, and
you were about to say something.
Yeah, and there was that famous scene, where Spider-Man's upside down, and then he's kissing Mary Jane.
Oh yeah,
I thought you were going to reference the scene where Aunt May's doing her prayer, but then
that's what I was about to say. That
when Goblin he figured out Spider-Man's identity. He blows a freaking hole in Aunt May's house and like demands her to finish the prayer.
Yeah, from what I heard, while they were filming the upside down kiss, Tobey Maguire hated filming it. It's because that, people really aren't meant to be upside down like that, and so having all that rain going into like his nose and whatnot while doing that kiss, he hated it. But I can see why. So yeah.
But yeah, I almost forgot about the kiss scene.
But yeah,
and that's basically how she found out at the end of the movie when Peter kissed her. Like I remember that kiss.
Yeah, and I was just surprised by the ending, like when Peter has his chance to be with MJ, but then he just says no. I'm like, well, that's shocking.
Well, it's the same thing in all the movies, really. They think their life is like too dangerous for anybody to be around or something.
Yeah. But yeah, we really talked a lot about Spider-Man 1. It's almost an hour in, so I say we should get to Spider-Man 2.
So listen. All right. Oh, before we go, it's the ending real fast. The Goblin basically kills himself when Peter jumps out of the way, and the glider hits him, and then Harry thinks that Spider-Man killed him. This was later on for.
By the way, that's another one of Goblin's famous quotes. Like after he gives the big speech, and then claiming that he's been like a father to Peter, but then Peter reaffirms that Uncle Ben was his father figure, and then Goblin right before he activates the glider, and then ultimately kills him. He goes, "Godspeed, Spider-Man." Yeah, that's another famous Goblin quote.
Yeah, there's just so many quotable lines, like in all Tobey Maguire films.
Yeah, including the Goblin's rendition of "The Itsy Bitsy Spider including having like a little bit of like a chimey tune going with it.
That was so memorable, which is, in the Andrew Garfield movies, I can't really think of any quotable lines.
Yeah, they're a lot more generic on that front.
Yeah.
Right. So like you said, the second movie, a few years have passed, Spider-Man's still doing his thing, still being insulted by Jameson.
Speaking of which, we didn't talk a whole lot about him in the first one.
Yeah, we really didn't. But yeah, the casting of J.K. Simmons for that role was perfect.
Like, so perfect. It's to the point where they're afraid to recast him.
Yeah, and they made it perfectly clear even in the Andrew Garfield movies, like that they were scared to recast him.
Yeah, because he ultimately in the Andrew Garfield movies, we never see Jameson. We only get one single hint of him, like because it's made clear in Amazing Spider-Man 2 that he's working for him, and so Andrews Peter like sends a text message or email to him, and all we get is a single reply from him that's like a wrong in all caps. I forget what it was for, but. And then, of course, when we got Jameson in the MCU, they had J.K. Simmons back.
Yeah, it's because he's just so perfect. And
yeah,
I did hear one fan casting idea saying that if they were to recast, J. Jonah Jameson, they're saying that they should get Ice Cube.
I don't know if I freaking enjoy Ice Cube and stuff like 21 Jump Street, but I don't know how well he would be as Jameson.
But J.K. Simmons definitely is built for that role, so.
So we have Harry's in charge of Oscorp now, and he's funding the scientist of Octavius.
Yep,
who
horribly wrong.
And they've in this universe, they're attempting, or they've gotten the power of fusion down. At least that's his plan, at least.
I mean, it's funny how Doc Ock's origins are actually pretty similar to that of Green Goblin, at least in some continuities. I know that in the 90s animated series, it was like note for note, just like what happened to Green Goblin in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie, because promising scientist, but then he got all his funding cut, so he was forced to do everything himself, and that led to the accident that made him Doc Ock.
I was about to think that maybe.
I mean, in the Spider-Man 2, it's more so that he's just that because I mean he gets the funding from Oscorp and like nothing happens to it, but then he's like just stubbornly wants to like get an achievement out of it, I guess. Like make.
I was thinking that this Doc Ock was more like Mr. Freeze in the Batman universe, where he's originally a good guy, but
of course it was done a lot better in Spider-Man 2 than in Batman and Robin.
Yeah, well, no, the thing with Batman and Robin is that they used like the Batman the Animated Series origin for Mr. Freeze.
Right.
Yeah, so it was based off of something that was done a lot better, but
I do get that. But I'm just saying it was done a lot better in Batman the Animated Series, and it was done better in Spider-Man 2, if you want to make that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I mean.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess Arnold, unless it's really, I guess Arnold doesn't do comedy movies that good.
It was interesting casting, Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze, and and now that I think about it, both of them have that same. Factor, which makes them sympathetic, is the fact that Mr. Freeze just want to be with his wife again, and then in Spider-Man 2, Doc Ock loses his wife, so.
But the thing is, after he loses his wife, like she's almost never mentioned again afterward.
Yeah, now you mention it, I just now noticed that. So maybe
like he acknowledges it like when he first wakes up, and that's basically it.
Yeah. So in this movie, or at least I don't know, I forget if they did this in the cartoon, but in the movie they have the microchip of the arm take over his brain, over his spinal cord.
And I liked how the tentacles had a mind of their own, and so.
Yeah.
So
I mean, when the accident happens, and then they're doing and then they're trying to do surgery to take them off because they're fused to him. That leads to another Sam Raimi trademark horror scene.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I remember as a kid, I was watching that scene at a friend of mine's house. As soon as it got to the part where that girl's nails were scratching at the ground,
yeah,
my friend legitimately got freaked out about that.
I mean, what helps is that the entire scene has no music. It's literally just the sounds of the doctor screaming.
Yep, and
and then cut to pieces by the arms.
and music definitely can help with some scenes, but you don't always need music. I mean, even going to the first Jurassic Park, during the part where the T-Rex attacks the Jeep, there's not a single note of music.
Same
And
thing with Jaws, like when the shark jumps on the boat and like Quint gets dragged down and killed by it. Like there was no music during that.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So but in this movie, I think he's stealing money so he can rebuild his
Yeah,
factory.
because I think that's like his one I think he does it because the arms are like convinced that's his one purpose, and they're convincing him to do it, I believe.
Somebody brought up a point. I forget what it was. I remember reading about this point. Is why didn't he steal the equipment for the thing instead of stealing the money to buy the equipment?
Probably because I mean, it could be because the arms were thinking practically about it. Maybe.
Possibly.
Because, like the way they were programmed.
So, then the side story where Peter's lost his powers for a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's that period alive where he's not saving people anymore, and yeah, Peter Parker has a very relatable character arc in that movie, like about how he's trying to balance all these things in his life, which is something that all of us can relate to, like trying to balance out school and work and
Yeah.
trying to have friends in your life. It's a very, very relatable character arc. And I also even like that cameo that they have from Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
Like a flashback?
Yeah.
It's like a dream sequence. Though it does take place like in the car, like when he last saw him before he got shot.
Uh-huh.
Now, did Peter move into this crappy apartment in this movie or the third movie?
Mr. Dickovich, which, by the way, Mr. Dickovich was named after one of the creators of Spider-Man, Steve Ditko.
Ah, that's interesting. And yeah, and that one girl, like who made, Peter like the, that cake, you so easily could tell that girl had the hots for Peter. And then, jumping ahead in Spider-Man 3, they made Mary Jane, more of a bitch in Spider-Man 3. So because of that, it kind of made me wish that Peter would have ended up with like that girl, like who was nice to Peter and making him, the cake and all that.
I mean, in fairness, No Way Home implies that while Peter and Mary Jane are still together, they're working through a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
it
there's
is left ambiguous.
And then there's the other side story where Mary Jane's getting married to. It's funny, the astronaut, and in the '94 series, I think the astronaut was supposed to be. Was the astronaut? I feel like in this one was the astronaut Jameson's son.
Yeah, in the '94 series and in Spider-Man 2, he was Jameson's son. But see, that was jumping a little bit to Spider-Man 3. I'm a little bit, looking back, I'm a bit surprised because Spider-Man 3 took a lot of beats from the '94 animated series regarding the black suit. And I'm a little bit surprised that the black suit didn't come in from a mission that Jameson's son was on, because that's what happened in the '94 series.
Kind of like an Easter egg. You see it.
Yeah, basically, because in the '94 series, what happens is John Jameson is on like a mission, like on an asteroid. They get they find like a rare mineral that the black suit comes from, and it sneaks onto their shuttle. They're coming back to Earth, but then it tries to like take over like him and the other pilot of the shuttle, and it causes the shuttle to crash. And that's like what.
Like I said, yeah, that would be a good idea to not to actually have the symbiote in the second movie, at least hint at it.
But yeah, but the way the symbiote arrives in Spider-Man 3 is that it just comes on like an asteroid.
Yeah, and it would have been so much better if they would have done that.
If they had John Jameson, because he barely does anything in Spider-Man 2. Like, it would have been nice if they worked him into 3 a little bit more to reference the fact that 2 ends with Mary Jane walking out on the wedding day, which is not referenced at all in the third movie.
Yeah. Oh, something I forgot to mention in the first movie is that Goblin made Spider-Man do that choice thing. Choose the kids or choose your girlfriend.
Yeah.
The ultimate. What was that? What was that called? The trolley choice.
I guess, but now
Anyways,
getting back to Spider-Man 2. I mean, one thing to point out about Spider-Man 2 is how the effects were so much better, because while Spider-Man 1 has shown its age quite a bit, 2's effects still hold up to this day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So he throws the famous scene where he throws the card at Peter and he senses it.
Yeah, that's when he gets his powers back.
It's like, I just wanted to talk to you. And that was after before the famous the famous elevator train scene.
Yeah, that was right before the famous train sequence where the effects budget really shows itself off.
And I guess for everyone on the train saw Spider-Man unmasked.
Yeah, and they promise not to tell. We'll see if people actually.
Yeah, that definitely is one of the best scenes in the entire Spider-Man film saga.
Yeah, because let's see, their reactions to seeing him unmasked. There's one guy who even points out he's just a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess in surprise because I guess they figured that Spider-Man would have been much older.
Yeah. Well, I guess that public is much more nicer to this Peter than the other Peter. But it's whatever time. So we get the big fight, and was he, what's the word? Not repaired. Redeemed at the end of the movie, or he died at villain still?
Well, basically redeemed.
Taking No Way Home into account.
His redemption didn't come full circle until No Way Home, but he still clearly wanted to redeem himself at the end of Spider-Man 2.
Yeah. So why did why did Peter lose his powers for temporarily? Remember why?
Lose his powers. It was just it was largely due to the stress of juggling his double life was bringing him. Because there's the part where he decides to just drop being Spider-Man entirely because it became too much for him.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Then we get to the third movie, which everyone seems to hate.
I remember when I saw it when I was a teenager, I remember I was really hyped for it, primarily because of my own cousin actually has a part in that movie.
Oh, wow.
I shit you not, my cousin is Thomas Hayden Church.
Yeah, you mentioned.
Yeah, so I was excited for that, to see my own cousin on the big screen. I was excited for that. I remember I loved the movie when I first saw it. Then as time goes on, I notice more of its flaws. But I will give the movie this. I do like how they were trying to have that message like about letting go of resentment. I do like that. But the movie absolutely has its problems, like the infamous emo Peter Parker. Like,
Yeah.
I get it that they're trying to show how Peter has changed and being evil, but that was cringe.
So the
Yeah.
resentment thing, that was two ways, right? Peter with Hayden Sandman killing his uncle, and then with Harry thinking that that Peter killed his dad.
Yeah.
So I think what I've heard a lot of people have problems with in this movie was they say the other one did better was too many villains or something.
Yeah, and you can blame Sony for that because Sony really wanted Venom, but Sam Raimi didn't really care for Venom. But
I mean, the thing is, while some of the blame can be placed on Sony, some of it is on Sam Raimi too, because he didn't want Venom, but he did want Vulture with Sandman and Harry Osborn still in the movie. So Sam Raimi still kind of wanted the three villains, but it's just he didn't. That specific villain he wanted was vetoed in favor of Venom.
Who was played by the guy from the 70s show, I think.
Yeah.
I think it was in that movie the reason he left the series.
No, I think that wasn't the series. I don't know anything about that 70s show, but wasn't it done by then?
No, I think it was wrapping up.
matter of fact, you're right. The reason why he left that 70s show was so that he could do this movie, and then afterwards, whatever happened to Topher Grace? You never see him in movies or TV shows, so it's like
probably because people were making fun of him for his portrayal in this movie.
So talk about having it backfire.
Yeah, and
the
series
Grace's casting as Eddie Brock was considered a bit of a miscast. I think he kind of looks like how Brock does, but I think the big thing that kills it for people is that most interpretations of Eddie Brock have him as like a buff muscle man, whereas Topher Grace is like very, very slim.
Yeah, and so Topher Grace, I think, would have made a much better Peter Parker.
Yeah, in general, people criticize Spider-Man 3's version of Venom for not being like big and imposing like how most versions of Venom are. So I guess in that regard, the Tom Hardy Venom was like a lot closer to what people were expecting.
Yeah, and
a
lot of people complain about how they butchered Venom in Spider-Man 3 and, the too many villains, too much going on with the plot. And people also complain about how they retconned Uncle Ben's death.
Ben's death. They make it to where now it's not the robber from the first movie. It was Sandman.
Partner. Yeah,
partner of the guy.
The partner was Sandman.
I mean, I get why they did that. Part of the movie's character arc. About resentment and whatnot. I get that.
Forgiveness.
Yeah, so I totally get why.
Oh, speaking of that, another one of the infamous scenes from Spider-Man 3 is how Harry decides to get over his resentment over Peter and go help him during the final battle. It's because the butler tells him the truth about what happened to Norman, that he got pierced by his own glider by accident, and that Spider-Man didn't actually kill him on purpose. And the reason why people laugh that off is because the butler knew that for 2 whole movies now and waited until now to tell him that.
Yeah, like, why didn't he tell him sooner?
But the funny thing is, like, for the 10th anniversary of Spider-Man 3, they very low-key dropped what's called the editor's cut of the movie. Like, that's the thing. Spider-Man 2 and 3 both have, well, 2 specifically has an extended edition. 3 has what's called an editor's cut. Like, they dropped it, like, they like stealth dropped it. Like, people who owned the digital copy of 3 got it automatically. They quietly updated the Blu-ray releases of 3 to have it, like, particularly like in compilation re-releases of like the whole trilogy. The main thing with the editor's cut is that it was meant to restore the originally intended soundtrack for the movie, because they were planning to use one soundtrack, but then they had to compose another one. But what happened was they did alter some scenes, and the biggest alteration is one of the biggest alterations is that they removed the infamous Butler scene.
Huh.
And what they put in its place is they kind of the Butler doesn't. They still have a scene of like Harry like making the decision to come help him, but the Butler's not in there at all. Basically, it's him just alone in his apartment reminiscing, and ultimately he comes across a picture of him, Peter, and Mary Jane when they were in high school, like when they were still like best of friends, and he kind of just like laments like how much of a downfall it's been for all three of them. Like, he makes the decision himself.
Okay.
So, yeah, one of the biggest changes of one of the biggest benefits of the editor's cut.
Yeah, I was going to say, in the beginning of the movie, he's chasing down Spider-Man Peter, and he gets injured or something and loses his memory for a while.
Yeah, he loses his memory. By the way, the thing with that scene is how Aunt May gives him like the wedding ring or something that he wants to use to propose to Mary Jane, and like he keeps losing it. Like, part of the fight's like him trying to prevent him from losing it.
So
yeah.
So let's get to the infamous Peter's becomes a dick series of scenes after he gets the emo Peter stuff.
Yeah, and on top of that, they also made Peter Parker less sympathetic during that scene where he kisses Gwen Stacy right in front of MJ, and they also make MJ out to be a little bit less sympathetic, like with how much of a bitch she is in that movie. And so a lot of the issue with Spider-Man 3, I would say, is the script. I mean, the acting is not the issue. The special effects are not the issue. One thing that I do like about Spider-Man 3 is during that scene where Sandman becomes Sandman, where he's trying to reach for like that necklace, but he can't. But then it creates a plot hole, okay? Why can't he pick that up? But he can perfectly like punch through walls and punch Spider-Man with his sand. So
I guess maybe they're at the time.
I guess the idea is that when he's just forming into Sandman, like he's not able to like form himself properly.
Okay, I guess that would make sense.
Yeah, like he's not able to form himself properly, but then he like gets adjusted to it.
Okay.
Oh
yeah.
And then I guess this scene where I guess Peter thinks he killed Sandman, and he brags it to Aunt May, and she doesn't like that or something.
Yeah, well, basically, because don't forget, Aunt May is a lot more sympathetic to Spider-Man in this version. Like, basically, she didn't take him for being a cold-blooded murderer.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's the reason that she doesn't like it.
Yeah, and yeah.
And then there's the Eddie Brock scene where at first he makes a fake photograph of Spider-Man doing something.
Yeah, doing a Photoshop job.
But then Peter exposes it. So he's praying in the church to kill Peter, and then here
for
comes
God to kill Peter.
Yeah, and there also is a memorable line in Spider-Man 3 about religion, like where Peter Parker says, "You want forgiveness? Try religion."
Yeah, and that's the reason why he's in the church during that scene.
Yeah, and there's also that infamous a quote in Spider-Man 3 where he goes, "I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye." I mean, I've seen so many memes about Spider-Man 3. It seems like out of all the Tobey Maguire ones, that one seems to be the one that's gotten the most memes out of it.
Wow.
At least to me.
So I guess in the end, both Sandman and Harry get redeemed, and then Eddie dies.
Yeah.
How did he die again? Like,
What happened was during the last fight, so Harry gets involved in the fight. He gets knocked out. Venom starts kicking the shit out of Peter, who's like bound by like some of Venom's webs, I believe. Like he takes Harry's glider and like starts hitting him with it. And then ultimately he moves like do like a jumping stab with it, and at the last minute Harry jumps in the way and takes the blow for Peter, and well, he dies from the wound after the fight.
Yeah, and
Basically dying the same way his dad did by the blade of his own
I knew that. I
glider.
meant, how did Eddie die?
Eddie? Oh, Eddie. What happened was so Peter figures out that the symbiote doesn't, well, he knows that the symbiote doesn't like sound because that's how he got it off. So he makes a bunch of sound and he gets Eddie separated from the symbiote. Then Peter grabs one of Harry's pumpkin bombs and throws it at the symbiote. By the way, that's another horror shot from Sam Raimi horror shot, like when the symbiote is like unformed off of Eddie, and like it has like it's making like an unearthly scream as like it tries to lunge for Peter, but then he knocks it back with the sound again.
mm-hmm.
But so Peter grabs a pumpkin bomb that from Harry's glider, throws it at the symbiote, but Eddie, having like formed a bomb with the symbiote, doesn't want it to be destroyed, so he in vain jumps back towards it to get rebonded with it, and then the bomb incinerates him and the symbiote.
Yeah. And then there was supposed to be a Spider-Man 4, like they're gonna have Bruce Campbell be Mysterio for a cameo, and they even were gonna get Vulture in the movie, played by John
Vulture,
Malkovich, and Anne Hathaway was gonna
be Black
like,
Cat, right?
Dress. It's a stupid idea, but
I mean, ultimately, she did play another character with the name Cat, just Catwoman in Batman and The Dark Knight Rises.
Right, so
but
I forgot to mention that in our.
Oh yeah, I think. But the whole thing is the thing with Eddie in Spider-Man 3 is that his fate was apparently going to be a little more gruesome. Originally, it was just going to be Spider-Man incinerating it with the symbiote with the pumpkin bomb, I believe, because when he separated Eddie from the symbiote, the original plan was for him not to come out intact. Originally, what he pulled out was a skeleton, because the symbiote had ate Eddie's body, his flesh.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
Yeah, but they didn't do that route.
So, in retrospective, would have gone Spider-Man 4?
I'm not sure. I mean, if they made it, I would have seen it. I will say, when they confirmed Amazing Spider-Man was being made instead, I was actually pretty disappointed that I wasn't going to see Toby again.
I was too, is because I really didn't want to see Toby go. But then, I saw Amazing Spider-Man. I liked it at that time, but as time goes on, I notice more of its flaws. I like it less and less. It's not awful, but it really does have a lot of flaws. And Amazing Spider-Man 2...
Yeah, the Amazing Spider-Man movies were just Sony's effort to try and make their own cinematic universe. And just like DC before them, well, no, they actually kind of beat DC to the punch. They were rushing way too far into it, basically putting in so much convoluted stuff, like way too early.
And, you can't plant an entire garden if you can't even plant your first seed. So
Yeah.
it's the same problem with the 2017 Mummy, and
With Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice.
yeah, you have to make us care first.
Like what Marvel did is that they started with just Iron Man. It was literally only Iron Man. It was only the post-credit scene with Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury that kind of hinted at something bigger coming. Hulk was just a Hulk movie, but then you have the scene at the end of the movie where they got Robert Downey Jr. to make his cameo, and it's like at that point you're realizing, wow, they really are planning something. But then you got Thor, you got Iron Man 2.
Yeah, and if Iron Man 2 with the hammer
like
scene.
those movies had little bit more hints there, but still, at the end of the day, they were what they were. A Thor movie, another Iron Man movie, a Captain America movie, and then finally, Avengers is where they brought it all full circle by bringing all the characters together.
Yeah, that's how you do it. You don't cram too much in one movie. You just focus on making a good movie, and then it's something that you build up for.
If you'd like an example of so you have DC. They do Man of Steel. It's just a Superman movie, which is fine. I mean, Man of Steel, it depends on what you feel about the movie itself, because there's people who love it, people who hate it.
I think it's okay.
But the thing with Man of Steel is that it was a standalone movie.
Yes.
But then you get Batman versus Superman. Number one, this version of Batman has not had his own movie yet. And quite frankly, when they first announced the movie, I was very disappointed that it was not continuing the Dark Knight trilogy. Because if they had continued it, there would have been at least establishment for it.
Yeah, I can see why they did it, because Nolan's movies were meant to be more realistic. So they would have Superman. I get why that they didn't, but I also totally get where you're coming from.
Especially since Man of Steel was using the same naming convention as The Dark Knight, and hell, even Christopher Nolan was a producer on Man of Steel, not the director. He was just a producer, but yeah.
Yeah, so now we're getting off topic. So,
well, no, I just wanted to kind of establish, and then we can get back to how Amazing Spider-Man screwed it up, but
they did.
So Batman versus Superman, you get Batman introduced right out the gate, which would have been fine if they only introduced him, but then they throw in Wonder Woman out of nowhere, and then they throw in Aquaman, Cyborg, and Flash and cameos at the very end, and then already that's going to Justice League.
And then they have Doomsday. I'm like, it's way too soon to be doing the death of Superman thing, That's something that you should build up for.
Then, now, on Amazing Spider-Man, the first Amazing Spider-Man wasn't too bad with it, because it was mostly, its own standalone origin story and everything, but then you did get the guy in the hat at the end, and then Amazing Spider-Man 2 went overboard. It was already, they did Gwen Stacy's death already. We're talking about the Sam Raimi movies, but they have a pre-established friendship with Harry and Peter that we don't even know anything about, because it's first introduced in the movie. Then they're going to do the Sinister Six. They're hinting at Black Cat. They're yeah.
Oh yeah, and then they have the Mary Jane. They cut out the thing.
They had Mary Jane in the movie. They even
played by Shayna Whitley girl.
Yeah, they filmed scenes with her, and then they ended up cutting her out of the movie. And sadly, they didn't even include the scenes on the Blu-ray. We only have test footage.
So I'm like, so what? You just wasted her time. The actress who played her, and you're not even gonna put it on the Blu-ray?
Nope. All we have of her scenes in the movie is test footage of when they were filming it.
Oh, and here's the irony. They said that they cut her out because they didn't want to have too many characters.
That is truly ironic.
Oh, the irony of that.
The only reason I could see if the paying route was that they wanted to focus more on
Peter and Gwen.
Yeah, but then like they didn't. Yeah, but so overall, what do you guys think of the Sam Raimi trilogy?
Personally, I like all three of them, even 3, despite its problems. Because, yeah, 3 has a lot of silly moments, but so do, if we're being honest, so do the first 2.
About you, Eric?
Oh man, the first Spider-Man I have a lot of fun with. Spider-Man 2 I really enjoy. I actually remember that I saw Spider-Man 2 at the theater with my dad. So because of that, I am always gonna have that childhood, memory. Spider-Man 1 and 2. Spider-Man 3, I loved it as a teenager, but as time goes on, I really notice its flaws. So I think I'll say Spider-Man 2 is the best out of them all. Spider-Man 1 comes in second place. Spider-Man 3, it has good ideas. It just wasn't executed well.
Yeah, in my opinion, I say the first one was the best. Second and third, 1, 2, 3. At least be cliche about that, but yeah. So before we go, besides your upcoming movie productions, what's coming up on your channels?
Okay, well, on Eric Viertheller 92, I have a few more episodes of Let's Watch a Movie. I am going to be streaming the original Nosferatu here soon. I'm going to stream Plan 9 from Outer Space, which is notorious for being one of the best, worst movies ever made. See, on Eric the Tyrannoceratops, I have a few more debunk videos coming up. And pretty much the big thing I have coming up is my new movie I'm going to be filming. I've debated on if I should do like some like behind the scenes vlogs, kind of like what Peter Jackson did for his remake of King Kong.
I'd be interested.
Yeah, I thought it would be cool if I did something like that. And also, there actually is this friend of mine who I met at my campus. She's actually making a movie herself, and she said that she's planning on putting it on Netflix. And she approached me to be the villain, and she approached me to be a cameraman. So over the summer, I'm going to be doing both my movie and I'm going to be doing hers. So I'm going to be busy.
Nice. So I don't know if you mentioned. I forgot you. I don't remember you mentioned it because I was blank a second. And you interviewed somebody too recently.
Yes. I interviewed Sarah Karloff, which is the daughter of the famous Boris Karloff. Boris Karloff is famous for being the Frankenstein monster, and he also was the original Grinch.
Yeah.
And Sarah Karloff actually was kind enough to send me a signed Frankenstein poster. So I actually, I actually have been in the process of editing the interview. So look forward to my interview with Sarah Karloff. I'm not gonna lie, talking to Sarah Karloff, I was pretty awestruck talking to Sarah Karloff, just knowing who her father was. So
wow.
So yeah.
I had to ask. Did you get a chance to try out the thing I sent you?
Yeah. You did send me that thing with Premiere, which I greatly appreciate. The fact that I don't have to pay for it, I can use yours. I have been experimenting with it, but I'll have a lot more time to experiment with it once my semester wraps up and for all the visual effects shots that I have for the third movie. So
can't wait to see what you do with it. But as for me, next week, here's my planned schedule. Next week, me and my guests are talking about the 27 amendments of our Constitution, what they were, when they think, and how they apply to us. Like the first one, the Trilogy one, freedom of speech, right to bear arms, no more alcohol.
And now alcohol comes back.
And voting to 18. Oh, and then the one where women can vote now. Then
Where
in
you
2
don't have
weeks,
to be 21 to vote. You have to be.
may I guess we're talking about the new K8 stuff in the last few years, the history of it, and how it's changed. Then, in 3 weeks, my friend will be ranking the English monarchs from his favorite to the ones that he thinks to be been beheaded.
Alrighty.
Then in a month from now,
Hmm.
the stupid thing that came up, but we're talking about the Iron Man
Wow.
trilogy. That's the thing I'm doing. At the beginning of each month, I'm thinking of doing a trilogy review,
Okay.
like we've been
And
doing.
Um,
Back to the Future.
yeah, and then maybe as soon as I'm done with things that piss me off the movie 3, we could do the same thing for that as well.
Awesome. Right.
On my channel, I mean, I don't do a whole lot. I mean, my friend Alma's been convincing me to live stream a little bit more. I mean, sometimes I don't talk in them because I'm not feeling it, but then sometimes I will. I keep trying to brainstorm like SFM animation sketches I want to do, but sadly, like time constraints have like prevented me from doing a bunch other than like picture sketches.
Right.
Yeah, I did manage to crank out a brief animation for an April Fool's joke. Basically what I did was there was these really old YouTube videos I watched of this guy who goes around his neighborhood pretending to be Barney the dinosaur. Like, he's doing the voice and everything. Like, basically, it's like parody sketches. Like, they're not for kids. So basically, the prank was that I used a thumbnail that implies that it's going to be a full-on SFM animation of Barney the dinosaur, like, invading. But no, it's literally, most of it is just a TV screen playing, like, these old videos of this guy pretending to be Barney. Like, we're talking, like, he doesn't wear a suit or anything. Like, he just does the mannerisms. He's like, oh, boys and girls, it's Barney time today. And you know what that means? Yep, that's right. It's Halloween. And at one point, one of the videos ends with him getting arrested. And, like, he's, like, pleading for the audience to, like, save him from his fate. Like, at one point, he's like, boys and girls, there's only one solution. I saw it in a movie. Hopefully it'll work. There's no place like home. There's no place. Like, he starts clicking his heels, like, thinking he's going to magically teleport out of there. And
yeah, I saw your thing on your channel.
And then, out of desperation, he's like, boys and girls, you really want Barney to make it through this adventure, you better start clapping your hands really fucking loud. And that was the one bit of animation I made. I turned the camera away from the TV, and you see the audience. You have a couple of Sonic characters and Persona characters just sitting there with, like, this dumbfounded look. They're like, really? Like, they're just like that. So you get the one shot of them, and then Barney responds, boys and girls, come on, I need more participation. and then he gets dragged away.
It reminds me of your review movie scene where you got dragged back to do the review.
Yeah, maybe there was some inspiration.
From your, I think it was your sister, I think.
Yeah, my sister was dragging me back.
But, well, thanks to you, and thank to Eric for being on tonight.
Right.
Hopefully your future plans will go great. I'll see you all next week. And remember, never stop learning. Enjoy the randomness. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Stand by me.